She smiled at me, then said something that took my breath away. The neon haze of New Manhattan flickered like a restless mirage, its towering spires stretching into the artificial twilight. Jack Armitage shoved his hands into the pockets of his worn-out jacket, dodging a drunken android as it stumbled. Out of a noodle bar, the street was alive with the usual chaos, hover bikes zipping past, holographic ads flashing their insistent messages, and the occasional street preacher warning about the impending doom of humanity. Jack had long since learned to ignore it all. He wasn't in the mood for existential dread. He had plenty of his own. The day's work had been particularly grueling, another 12 hours locked in a corporate lab analyzing data he didn't care about for a paycheck that barely covered rent. Exobiology had once been his passion, back when he believed there was something out there worth discovering, but now he spent his days cataloging alien bacteria strains for pharmaceutical giants, the closest he'd ever get to the great unknown. Hey, Jack. He turned to see a familiar face, Lenny, his favorite and only friend, a cybernetically enhanced bartender who ran the Rusted Gear, a dive bar famous for its terrible service and even worse clientele. You look like hell, Lenny said, tossing a cleaning rag over his shoulder. His left eye glowed, scanning Jack's vitals. Yep, elevated stress levels. You need a drink. I need a new life, Jack muttered, stepping inside the bar. The place smelled like burnt circuits and regret, the usual mix of human and non-human patrons occupying the dimly lit booths. A Martian bounty hunter argued with a reptilian trader over the price of illegal plasma cartridges, while a humanoid with too many arms expertly juggled 4 drinks at once. Just another night. Jack slid onto his usual stool. Hit me with something strong and preferably not toxic this time, Lenny smirked. No promises. He poured a dark amber liquid into a glass and slid it over. Jack took a sip, wincing as it burned its way down. Good Lord, is this made from jet fuel? Only the finest, Lenny said with a grin. Jack exhaled, trying to shake off the feeling that had been nagging him all day. Something was off. Maybe it was the constant drudgery of his job, or maybe it was the fact that he kept having strange dreams of stars he didn't recognize, of voices calling his name in a language he didn't understand. Ever get the feeling, Jack said, swirling his drink, that the universe is laughing at you? Lenny snorted. Buddy, I'm a half-human bartender with a malfunctioning liver implant. The universe has been laughing at me for years, Jack chuckled, about to reply when he felt it, a shift, not in the air, not in the bar, but in reality itself. The lights dimmed for a split second, a ripple running through the very fabric of existence. The sounds of conversation dulled, and for the briefest of moments it was as if the entire world had taken a deep, shuddering breath, and then she appeared. Jack noticed her immediately, because how could he not? She stood at the entrance of the bar, her figure illuminated by the dull neon glow of the Rusted Gear's ancient sign. She was tall, impossibly graceful, with silver hair cascading down her back and golden eyes that shimmered like molten metal, and her ears long, elegant, tapering into delicate points. Jack blinked. The drink in his hand suddenly felt much stronger. The woman's gaze locked onto his, and then she did something unexpected. She smiled, not the kind of polite, distant smile you give a stranger, nor the smirk of someone about to con you out of your credits. No, this was something else. Something warm, something that sent a shiver down his spine for reasons he couldn't explain. She walked toward him, the crowd parting unconsciously as if the universe itself made room for her presence. Jack's first instinct was to panic. His second was to take another drink. By the time she reached his table, his mind was a war zone of confused thoughts. Alien, augmented human, some kind of elaborate prank. She leaned in slightly, her golden eyes searching his face, and when she finally spoke, her voice was like a melody woven from stardust and forgotten dreams. You are not who you think you are, Jack. Jack stared at her, glass frozen halfway to his lips. Lenny, ever the supportive friend, burst out laughing. Well, that's a hell of a pickup line. Jack set his drink down, rubbing his temples. Okay, that's enough cryptic nonsense for one night, lady. I don't know who you are, but you have forgotten, she interrupted, tilting her head. But forgetting does not erase the truth, Jack exhaled sharply. Great. Just what I needed, a mysterious space elf with a philosophical agenda. The woman smiled again, and damn it if that didn't make his heart do something inconvenient. You are misplaced, she said, Softly, and they are coming for you, Jack frowned they before she could answer. The bar's front door slammed open, a wave of silence rippled through the room. 5 figures stepped inside, clad in sleek black armor, their helmets featureless. Save for a single glowing red visor, the air grew heavier, charged with something unseen, but deeply felt. The woman's expression remained calm, but there was a flicker of urgency in her gaze. We need to leave now. Jack glanced at the newcomers, then back at her. You know, he muttered, I was really hoping this would just be a normal night of bad drinks and self-loathing. She extended her hand. Come with me and I promise you will understand everything. Jack hesitated. Because he was many things, but reckless wasn't usually one of them, and yet as those armored figures began to move, he realized something deep in his bones. He believed her. With a resigned sigh, he grabbed her hand. Fine, but if this turns into some weird cult initiation, I'm out. The woman chuckled, and then the world vanished in a flash of blue light. The world reassembled itself in a way that Jack's brain absolutely did not appreciate. One moment, he was in the rusted gear, gripping the hand of an alien woman with unsettlingly beautiful golden eyes. The next, he was somewhere else. His stomach lurched in protest. His vision blurred, and for a brief, horrifying moment, he was convinced that his molecules had been reassembled incorrectly, like a broken jigsaw puzzle where none of the pieces fit quite right. He wobbled, blinked hard, and promptly fell to the ground in an unceremonious heap. He groaned, rolling onto his back. Teleation sucks. You will adjust, the woman said, not unkindly. She stood above him, completely unbothered by the fact that they had justified several laws of physics. Jack took a deep breath and finally looked around. They were no longer in New Manhattan. No neon lights, no skyscrapers, no rusted gear with its malfunctioning ceiling fan that always made a weird clicking noise. Instead, they stood beneath a sky filled with unfamiliar stars. Their glow strangely closer than it should have been. The ground beneath him was smooth, metallic, reflecting the cosmic light above. The air smelled different, clean, crisp, with a faint electric charge, like a storm waiting to happen. Okay, Jack exhaled, pulling himself up onto shaky legs. So we're either in space, or I drank something way stronger than I thought. We are in neither space nor a dream, the woman said. You're in a safe location for now. Jack turned to her, his brain finally catching up. Right, speaking of that, who the hell were those guys back at the bar? And while we're at it, who the hell are you? The woman regarded him for a moment, as if deciding where to begin. Finally, she said, my name is Ara. Jack repeated, running a hand through his hair. Great mysterious space elf named Ara. This night just keeps getting weirder. Ara raised an elegant eyebrow. Space elf? Jack gestured vaguely at her long ears. Yeah, the ears kind of give it away. What are you exactly? Alien hybrid government experiment gone wrong. I am a traveler, she said simply, and I am here to help. You remember? Jack sighed. Right, you said something about that before. I don't know what I'm supposed to be remembering, though I've lived on Earth my whole life, born, raised, went to school, got a job. I hate pretty standard human experience. All's expression softened slightly. What if I told you that is not entirely true? Jack's stomach did a weird flip. I'd say you owe me a very big explanation. Ara nodded, then listened carefully. She turned away, gesturing for him to follow. Jack hesitated, then sighed and fell into step beside her. They walked across the metallic surface, their footsteps echoing softly in the silence. Strange lights flickered beneath their feet, pulsing like veins of energy running through the structure. Jack finally broke the silence. So where exactly are we? A station, Alice said. Hidden between dimensions, a place the collectors cannot easily reach. Jack frowned. Collectors? You mentioned them before. The guys in black armor, right? Who are they? R's expression darkened. They are hunters. They take what they desire, people, knowledge, entire civilizations, and they do not give back. Jack whistled. Fantastic, and they want me because Alara stopped walking because you are not who you think you are. Jack groaned. Can we just cut to the chase? I feel like I'm trapped in an ominous prophecy, and I'd really like to skip to the part where things start making sense. Ara studied him for a long moment, then she reached into a compartment on her belt and pulled out a small device. It looked like a silver coin etched with glowing symbols that Jack didn't recognize. She held it up. Between them, this will show you the truth, she said, but only if you are ready to see it. Jack eyed the device wearily. And what happens if I'm not ready? Alla tilted her head. Then you will continue. Believing the lie, Jack exhaled fantastic no pressure before he could overthink it. He reached out and touched the device. The world shattered for a moment. He wasn't standing on a station, he wasn't anywhere. His mind was flooded with images, memories that weren't his, but somehow were a ship gliding through an ocean of stars, a voice calling his name, not Jack, but something else, something familiar yet forgotten, planets that didn't exist in any human record, filled with cities of impossible beauty, and then flashes of chaos, fire, destruction, a battle he didn't remember fighting but knew he had been part of, and then darkness. Jack gasped as he was yanked back into reality, nearly stumbling. His head pounded, his breath coming in sharp, uneven gulps. All watched him carefully. You remember, don't you? Jack swallowed, shaking his head. Number I don't know. What the hell? That was you saw fragments, Ara said, pieces of what was taken from you. Jack ran a shaky hand through his hair. Are you saying what that I used to be some kind of space explorer? Ara's expression was unreadable. Something more than that. Jack let out a breathless, incredulous laugh. This is insane. This is absolutely insane. You have always known, Alara said softly. You have felt it even if you could not name it. Jack hesitated because deep down he knew she was right. There had always been something annoying sense of displacement, like he didn't quite fit the dreams, the strange pull he felt when he looked at the stars, but this was too much. Jack exhaled. All right, let's say for the sake of argument that you're telling the truth. What happens now? R's golden eyes darkened. Now we run. Jack blinked. Run from what? As if answering his question, a distant rumble shook the station. The lights beneath him flickered. Ara's face tightened. The collectors have found us. Jack groaned. You know, for an interdimensional hideout, this place kind of sucks at staying hidden. Ara grabbed his wrist. Hold on, wait, hold on to what? Before he could finish, the world dissolved into light once more. Jack's stomach had officially given up on making sense of reality. One moment he was standing on that weird in-between dimension station, trying to wrap his head around cryptic memories, and Alara's talk of collectors. The next, everything turned into an explosion of light, sound, and velocity. He had the distinct sensation of moving without moving, as if reality itself had folded him into a crumpled piece of paper and tossed him across the cosmos. His vision blurred, his lungs felt squeezed, and for one horrifying second he was convinced he had left his stomach behind. Then, with a bone-rattling thud, he landed face first onto something cold and metallic. Groaning, he peeled himself off the surface, blinking furiously as his vision adjusted. Okay, he wheezed, I'm putting teleportation on my list of things that suck, right next to corporate jobs and alien hit squads. Ara, of course, had landed gracefully because, of course, she barely spared him a glance as she strode forward, tapping something on a wrist-mounted device. We do not have much time. The collectors will have already begun scanning for residual energy signatures. Jack pushed himself up, groaning. You know, I'd like one sci-fi escape where I don't immediately have to run for my life. Just once. Ara looked over her shoulder, her golden eyes gleaming in the dim light. Would you prefer to stay and test your luck? Jack dusted himself off, muttering, you really need to work on your sense of humor. Finally, he took in his surroundings. They were in a narrow, dimly lit corridor. The walls were made of sleek black metal, humming faintly with energy overhead. A long strip of white light pulsed at steady intervals, giving the place an eerie, rhythmic glow. Jack frowned. Where are we now? A ship, Aller said simply. She moved to a nearby console, fingers dancing over the glowing interface. Jack raised an eyebrow. Whose ship? She didn't answer right away. Instead, the console beeped an acknowledgement, and the floor beneath them vibrated slightly, the air changed, pressure shifting as the ship powered up. Only then did she look back at him. Technically, she said, it belongs to a warlord. Jack blinked. Excuse me, a warlord, she repeated as if that explained everything. Jack threw up his hands. Great, fantastic. Not only am I apparently some kind of amnesiac space fugitive, but now I'm an accessory to Grand Theft Starship. Why not? Let's add intergalactic felony to the list. Ignored him, turning her attention back to the console. We are on a salvaging vessel called the Zephyr. It was recently impounded by the collectors. They will not expect us to be here. Jack let out a slow breath, rubbing his temples. You know, there's a lot you're not telling me, like, oh, I don't know why I'm so important that interdimensional bounty hunters want me, or what exactly I used to be before my memory got. Scrambled. R's hands hesitated over the console just for a fraction of a second. Then she turned to face him fully. I will explain everything, but first we need to leave. Jack groaned. You keep saying that. But the universe seems really determined to keep us in the imminent danger zone. As if on cue, an alarm blared. The walls pulsed red. Somewhere in the distance, the heavy stomp of boots echoed through the corridor. Jack winced. Oh, come on. R's fingers flew over the console. They found our location. I am overriding the ship's security now. Once the system resets, we can access the cockpit. Jack glanced down the corridor. The footsteps were getting louder. And what happens if they get here first? R didn't look up. Then we die. Jack nodded. Cool. Love the optimism. The first set of armored guards rounded the corner. Sleek black exo suits, visors glowing crimson. Jack didn't have to be an expert in intergalactic diplomacy to know that they weren't here to offer warm handshakes and welcome baskets. Ara, he prompted. The guards raised their weapons. Ara, now would be good. The console beeped. The ship rumbled. Doors along the corridor slammed shut with a metallic clang, cutting off the advancing guards. R exhaled. Security reset complete. Follow me. Jack let out a nervous chuckle. You know, a little warning next time would be. Before he could finish, the ship lurched, throwing him off balance. A mechanical voice crackled over unseen speakers. Warning, unauthorized launch sequence initiated. All personnel evacuate immediately. Jack grabbed onto the nearest wall. Wait, what did you do? R was already moving. I may have activated the ship's autopilot. Jack gawked. You may have. The ship trembled again, engines roaring to life through a nearby window. Jack caught a glimpse of the outside, a massive docking bay, walls lined with scaffolding, blinking hazard lights flashing in warning, and then suddenly motion. The ship lifted off the docking floor, angling toward a massive bay door that was rapidly trying to close. Jack's stomach flipped. I hate everything about this plan. The ship launched forward, its thrusters firing at full power. Jack barely had time to brace himself before the entire vessel rocketed through the narrowing gaps, scraping against the edge of the bay door. As it hurtled into open space for a few breathless seconds, there was nothing but silence, then stars, endless and vast, stretching beyond the horizon. The ship's artificial gravity stabilized, and Jack finally managed to push himself upright. R exhaled. We are free. Jack let out a slightly hysterical laugh. Oh, sure, free. Just two fugitives in a stolen ship with an army of relentless bounty hunters after us. This is exactly how I wanted my week to go. R turned to him. Would you have preferred the alternative? Jack considered that, then with a deep sigh he slumped against the nearest console. I'd prefer a drink. R's lips curved slightly. We may be able to arrange that. Jack let out another laugh. Because really, what else was there to do? He was on the run from an intergalactic threat he barely understood, sitting on a stolen ship with a mysterious woman who claimed he wasn't who he thought he was, and yet, for the first time in a long, long while, he felt alive. Jack had spent most of his life dealing with bad decisions. Some of them were small, like the time he tried to fix his apartment's water heater with nothing but duct tape and optimism. Others were bigger, like accepting a job at a corporation that drained his soul like a vampire with a 401k, but somehow none of them compared to stealing a spaceship and escaping an intergalactic death squad with a mysterious alien woman. He let out a long breath, slumping back in the captain's chair of the Zephyr. The adrenaline of their escape was finally wearing off, leaving behind a buzzing exhaustion that made his head feel like it was filled with static. Across from him, Ara was standing at the ship's main console, golden eyes scanning the displays as she adjusted their course. She looked calm, composed, like she hadn't just orchestrated a grand theft starship while being chased by ruthless bounty hunters. Jack, on the other hand, was still mentally screaming. So, he said, rubbing his face on a scale from mild inconvenience to we're totally screwed. How bad is our current situation? Ara didn't look up. That depends. Jack groaned. I hate answers that start with that depends. Ara's lips quirked slightly. Then you may hate what I say next. Jack crossed his arms. Try me. R tapped a few glowing keys on the console, bringing up a holographic display. The collectors will not give up easily. Our escape was unexpected but not irreversible. They will be searching for us. Jack exhaled through his nose. So totally screwed. It is not yet said, but we need a plan. Jack Gestured around the cockpit. Well, let's review our resources, shall we? We have the Zephyr, which, as you mentioned, belongs to a warlord, meaning it's probably stolen. We have me, who apparently has mystical forgotten space knowledge I can't access, and we have you, who is what, a space fugitive, a resistance fighter, a cosmic travel agent. Ella tilted her head. Would you believe me if I said all of the above? Jack stared at her for a long moment, then he sighed. You know what? Sure, why not? Turn back to the controls. Our first priority is finding a place to hide. The Zephyr has a cloaking system, but it will not last forever. Jack rubbed his temples. Great, so where do space fugitives go when they need to lay low? Is there a witness protection for dumb asses who stole a spaceship program? R considered for a moment, then flicked a few switches. There is a place, a neutral zone. It is dangerous, but it may be our best option. Jack didn't like the way she said dangerous. Define dangerous. R gave him a meaningful look. It is a lawless station filled with criminals, smugglers, and bounty hunters. Jack groaned. Great. Love it. Sounds like the perfect vacation spot. Ara input the coordinates. It is called Corin's Drift. Jack snorted. Of course it is. What is it with shady places always having names like that? Why can't it be something nice like Sunnybrook or Happy Fun Space? Ara raised an eyebrow. Would you feel safer if it was called Sunnybrook? Jack thought about it. Number that actually sounds more ominous. Ara nodded. Exactly. The ship rumbled as it adjusted course. A low hum filled the cockpit, the engines shifting into long-range mode. Jack leaned back in his chair. All right, tell me about this place. What do I need to know before we get there? Ara tapped at the holographic display, bringing up a three-dimensional image of Corin's Drift. It was less of a station and more of a floating junkyard city, a massive, irregularly shaped structure built from countless salvaged ships, asteroids, and who knows what else. It looked like it had been slapped together by someone with zero understanding of structural integrity, but infinite enthusiasm for chaos. Jack whistled. Wow, that is impressively ugly. It is one of the oldest independent trade hubs in the sector. All said. No governments, no laws, just deals, trades, and survival. Jack rubbed his chin. So like Craigslist but in space. Gave him a puzzled look. Never mind him, Jack muttered. Continued. If we keep a low profile, we should be able to find resources, fuel supplies, information. Jack arched an eyebrow. And if we don't keep a low profile? R glanced at him. Then we die. Jack sighed. I really wish you had other answers besides that one. R's lips quirked slightly. Then you must stop asking questions with obvious outcomes. Jack huffed. All right, fine, we go in, get what we need, and get out. How hard can it be? Ella hesitated. There is one issue. Jack threw up his hands. Of course there is. Ella tapped the holographic display again, and a list of names appeared at the very top in bright red letters. Was wanted, Jack Reeves, high bounty, dead or alive. Jack blinked, then he leaned in, rubbing his eyes just to make sure he was reading that correctly. Okay, that's new. Ara folded her arms. The collectors have placed a bounty on you. It is already circulating through the sector. If we enter Corin's Drift, you will need a disguise. Jack exhaled through his teeth. A disguise, right? Because that always works in movies. Ara nodded. Fortunately, the Zephyr has a fabricator that can create new clothing and identity markers. Jack frowned. Wait. If this ship has that, why don't you use it to disguise yourself? R's golden eyes glowed slightly. Because I do not have a bounty yet. Jack groaned. Yeah, well, give it time. Ara ignored him and gestured toward the corridor. Come, we need to prepare before we arrive. Jack sighed, running a hand through his hair. You know, I was having a perfectly normal life before this. Ara gave him an amused look. Were you? Jack opened his mouth, then closed it, because if he was being honest, no, he hadn't been. Something had always felt off, like he was waiting for something he couldn't name, and now he was on the run, hunted by space mercenaries about to sneak into a crime-ridden floating city, and for the first time in years he felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be the moment the Zephyr dropped out of hyperspace. Jack knew Corin's Drift was exactly the kind of place that would get him killed. The station was a chaotic floating monstrosity, a massive tangle of salvaged ships, rusted metal, and asteroid chunks, all somehow welded together into a semi-functional space hub. Neon lights flickered erratically along its surface, half of them spelling out advertisements for services Jack was pretty sure were Illegal in at least 50 star systems, the other half simply buzzed ominously. Promising broken promises and probable tetanas, Jack peered out the viewport. This place looks like it was built by a drunk engineer with commitment issues. Standing beside him at the console. Didn't react. Stay focused, we do not have much time. Jack sighed. Yeah, get in. Get supplies, don't get shot. I remember the plan. He glanced at her. By the way, I'd just like to officially lodge a complaint about my bounty being dead, or alive should really be the only option, as a courtesy. Ara's golden eyes glimmered as she activated the ship's cloaking transponder. Noted. I will be sure to take that up with the Intergalactic Bounty Board after we escape certain death. Jack rolled his eyes. I feel very heard, thank you. A voice crackled over the ship's comms. Unregistered vessel, state your business. Ara pressed a button, her voice cool and precise. Freelance traders requesting temporary docking clearance. There was a pause, then the reply, yeah, what's your cargo? Jack raised an eyebrow. Do we actually have any cargo? Ara muted the channel and looked at him. No. Jack scratched his chin. Right, so we lie. Ara's lips quirked slightly. Exactly. She unmuted the channel. We are carrying rare Zelvarian textiles and synthetic spice shipments from the outer rim. There was another pause, then the comm crackled again. Spice. Nice. Docking bay 42 is open. Try not to get shot. Jack blinked. That worked. Ara powered down the comm. It is Corin's drift. Everything works here as long as it sounds profitable. Jack exhaled. I really need to start lying with more confidence. The ship maneuvered toward the docking bay, slipping past mismatched vessels that looked like they'd been patched together by someone with a death wish and a welding torch. As the docking clamps engaged, the ship groaned like it was personally offended by the idea of staying here. Jack unbuckled his harness and stood. All right, let's suit up. Ara moved toward the ship's fabricator, pressing a few buttons. A compartment slid open, revealing a set of dark, slightly worn clothing. This should help you blend in. Jack picked up the outfit and frowned. Do all criminals shop at the same space thrift store? Ara ignored him and grabbed a small device from the fabricator. She pressed it against Jack's wrist, and he felt a brief sting as something injected into his skin. He yelped. Ow, what was that? A temporary identity tag. All said smoothly. It will override most standard scanners, registering you as a trader named Orenvex. Jack scowled. Orenvex, that sounds like a guy who definitely smuggles weird space drugs. Ara arched an eyebrow. Would you prefer Dax Rugen? Jack considered it, but a number or Vex is fine. Ara smirked. Good. Then let's go. The moment Jack stepped onto the station, he understood why had called it dangerous. The air smelled like burnt metal and old grease. The gravity was slightly off, making each step feel weirdly floaty. Everywhere he looked, there were people who either looked like they wanted to kill him or already had killed someone earlier today. A trio of reptilian aliens slithered past, clicking their forked tongues at him in what was probably not a friendly greeting. A massive four-armed bruiser with cybernetic eyes shoved his way through the crowd, carrying a crate labeled, "Do not open." Seriously, don't. Jack leaned toward. So where's the gift shop? Ara didn't even glance at him. Stay close and keep your voice down. Jack sighed and followed her through the winding alleys of the station, past flickering neon signs advertising everything from weapons to guaranteed memory removal. No questions asked. They ducked into a dimly lit market filled with shady merchants and even shadier goods. Ara stopped at a small stall run by a frail-looking alien with 6 eyes and a permanent sneer. Looking for something specific, the merchant rasped. Fuel cells, Ara said, and information. The merchant's eyes flickered with interest. Information costs extra. Jack crossed his arms. Oh, does it? Wow, what a shocking business model. The merchant ignored him and turned back to Ara. What do you need to know? Ara hesitated. We are looking for someone. A man who, before she could finish, Jack felt the hair on the back of his neck stand up. Something was wrong. The crowd around them had shifted. The casual flow of movement had suddenly changed. People were watching them now, stealing glances, murmuring to each other. Jack nudged. I think we've overstayed our welcome. Then, as if on cue, a deep mechanical voice rang out over the marketplace. Or Invest stiffened. Oh, that's not good. The merchant's 6 eyes widened. You idiots brought heat here. Jack held up his hands. In our defense, we didn't. A massive explosion rocked the marketplace. The ceiling above them cracked, sparks showering down as a squad of heavily armed bounty hunters dropped in from above. Jack grabbed arm. I really hate how often this happens. She was already moving, yanking him toward an emergency exit. The bounty hunters opened fire. Energy blast scorching the walls behind them. Jack ducked, cursing, "Tell me you have a plan." Ara reached into her coat and tossed him a small, dishaped device. "Press that when I say." Jack looked at it. "What does it do?" Ara pulled him behind cover as another blast narrowly missed his head. "It buys us time. Now press it." Jack squeezed the trigger. The device let out a high-pitched whine, and suddenly the entire marketplace was filled with thick, blinding smoke. Jack coughed. "Oh, fantastic, a smoke bomb. Do you carry anything that isn't dramatic?" Ara pulled him forward. "Move through the chaos." They darted toward the docking bay. The sound of shouts and gunfire echoed behind them, but Jack barely had time to register it before they burst through the station doors. The Zephyr was right where they'd left it. Jack sprinted up the ramp, slamming the hatch controls. Ara jumped into the pilot seat, flipping switches. Strap in. Jack threw himself into the co-pilot's chair just as the ship's thrusters roared to life. The station's docking alarms blared over the comms. A voice shouted, "Unregistered vessel, you are not cleared for launch. Stand down." Jack groaned. "Oh, we are so going to jail." Ara hit the thrusters. The ship blasted out of Karen's drift just as another explosion tore through the docking bay behind them. Jack exhaled. "I hate this place." Ara smirked. "And yet we survived." Jack shook his head. "Barely, and I still didn't get a souvenir." The Zephyr shot through the vastness of space, leaving Corin's drift as little more than a smoldering speck in the rear sensors. Jack let out a long theatrical sigh and slumped back in his seat. "Well, that was a fantastic visit," he grumbled. "Made some new enemies, lost what little trust I had in space stations, and didn't even get a snack." Ara, her golden eyes scanning the control panel, barely acknowledged him. "We are lucky we made it out at all." Jack scoffed. "Lucky are we? Just blasted out of a station, crawling with bounty hunters like a couple of amateurs in a cheap action vid. That wasn't luck, that was bad planning wrapped in a miracle." Ah's lips twitched slightly. "I agree with the first part. The second part was mostly my skill." Jack threw up his hands. "Of course, how could I forget Ara, the great savior of idiots like me?" He turned in his chair. "Speaking of idiots, can we take a moment to discuss the fact that my new alias Oren Vex is now publicly wanted on at least 3 different networks?" I was just starting to like that name. R tapped a few controls, pulling up a hollow display. A grainy security image flickered to life, showing Jack mid-sprint, mouth open in what could have been a battle cry or a scream. Below the image, the words "Wanted Oren Vex alive" or "Dismembered, payment reduced for partial capture" flashed in ominous red text. Jack stared. "Dismembered? Really? That's a very specific level of hostility." R tilted her head. "Technically, they are offering less money for partial capture, which implies they would prefer you whole." Jack groaned. "Oh well, that's comforting." Ara shut off the display and leaned back. "Either way, we need to move quickly. Kuren's drift is a hub for information. Traders' word of our escape will spread, and more bounty hunters will come looking for us." Jack massaged his temples. "Great, love that. So what's the plan? Do we change my name again? Maybe this time something respectable like Captain Vortex or O Duke Starfist?" Ara gave him a look. Jack, "Fine, no fun names, but we do need a plan." She nodded, her expression turning serious. "We have a lead now. The merchant at the market before the attack mentioned someone called Solar. That name is not unfamiliar." Jack frowned. "Solar? That's not a person, is it?" R's golden eyes glowed slightly as she leaned forward. "Number, it is worse. It is a syndicate." Jack winced. "Oh, fantastic. Nothing says this will end well like the word syndicate." Ara ignored him, tapping on the ship's navigation controls. "Solaric operates in the outer sectors beyond the usual trade lanes. They specialize in black market technology, bioenhancements, and information. Dangerous information. If your bounty was increased by them, it means you are connected to something bigger than just Karen's drift." Jack ran a hand through his hair. "So let me get this straight. I was a small-time pilot with bad luck and a few debts, then I met you, got tangled in some deep space conspiracy, and now I'm apparently worth chasing down by a shadowy intergalactic crime ring. That about sum it up?" A nodded yes. Jack sighed. "Yeah, that checks out. So where do we find these guys?" Ara pulled up a star map, the digital display highlighting a region deep in uncharted space. "There is an abandoned mining colony on Kelly's 4 Solar was known to have dealings there before the station collapsed, if there are still traces of their operations, that is where. We will start. Jack peered at the map. Kelly's 4 sounds like the kind of place that smells bad and wants to kill us. Aller's lips barely twitched into a smirk. Your instincts are improving. Jack let out another deep sigh and stretched. All right then, plot a course for the murder colony, but first, he sat up, cracking his knuckles. I am making coffee. Aura arched an eyebrow. You have time for coffee? Jack nodded solemnly. Ella, if I am about to walk into a probable death trap, I will do it. Caffeinated and defiant, she simply shook her head and turned back to the controls. The trip to Kelney's 4 took several hours, giving Jack time to do what he did best, procrastinate. He spent a solid 20 minutes attempting to recalibrate the Zephyr's slightly malfunctioning autopilot, which mostly involved smacking the console and shouting, "Fly better, you stupid machine." When that failed, he spent another 30 minutes fiddling with his stolen alias transponder, attempting to change Orenvex to something cooler. The device sparked in protest and refused to acknowledge his efforts. Finally, he resigned himself to packing around the ship, throwing out increasingly ridiculous mission ideas, to all of which she ignored when the ship finally dropped out of hyperspace near Kelly's 4. Jack was practically itching for something to do until he saw the planet. The mining colony was a graveyard. Kelney's 4 loomed before them, its surface a sickly reddish-brown with the skeletal remains of an industrial station hanging in orbit. The once massive mining facility had clearly suffered some kind of catastrophic failure. Jagged, broken structures floated listlessly in the void, and what little lighting remained flickered like a dying heartbeat. Jack swallowed. Okay, I take it back. I am not excited anymore. Aura adjusted the ship's scanners. The colony has been abandoned for over a decade. Radiation levels are unstable but manageable with filters. Jack pointed at the wreckage outside. Yes, super comforting. Remind me again why this was our best lead. Aura ignored his sarcasm, focusing instead on the readings. There is an artificial energy source still active beneath the surface. Jack's eyebrows shot up. Wait, you mean someone is still down there? Aura nodded. Or something, Jack groaned, and of course we're going toward it. Aura activated the ship's descent thrusters. Strap in. Jack buckled his harness, exhaling slowly. I swear if this ends with me running for my life again. Aura cut him off with a wry glance. It will. Jack threw up his hands. Great, love that for us. As the Zephyr broke through the thick, stormy atmosphere of Kelney's 4, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that whatever waited for them down there, whatever Solaric had left behind, wasn't going to welcome them with open arms, or if it did, the arms probably had way too many fingers. The Zephyr hurtled through the chaos of deep space, its hull groaning under the strain of a recent escape that had been, as usual, way too close for comfort. Jack leaned back in the pilot's seat, one hand gripping the controls, the other running through his already messy hair. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving behind exhaustion and the creeping realization that once again he had barely survived. Across from him, Aura sat in quiet concentration, her golden eyes scanning the data feeds from their latest encounter on Kelnus. For the remnants of Solar's hidden lab were still burning in the rear sensors, an eerie blue flame flickering against the black backdrop of space. They had uncovered what they came for: evidence of genetic experiments, rogue AI constructs, and a particularly nasty biological weapon that could have made entire planets very uninhabitable. It had taken a combination of quick-thinking, reckless heroism, and at one point Jack throwing an overcooked ration pack at a malfunctioning security drone, but they had survived barely. Jack exhaled slowly. Okay, before we do anything else, can we take a moment to appreciate the fact that I am not dead, because I feel like this needs to be acknowledged. Aura didn't look up. You say this after every mission, and yet it remains true every time. Jack shot back. I think I deserve a medal, or at least a very long nap. Aura finally turned to face him, her expression unreadable. There is no time for rest yet. Jack groaned. See, this is why I need a new career, something less likely to involve explosions, running for my life. Or he gestured vaguely, being hunted by intergalactic crime syndicates. Racked an elegant brow. You enjoy it more than you admit. Jack opened his mouth to argue, then stopped, because damn it, she wasn't wrong. When this all started, he had been just another down on his luck pilot, barely scraping by avoiding trouble when he But now he was tangled in a web of secrets stretching across the galaxy, running with a woman who was definitely not from around here and going up against forces that would rather see him erased than let him keep breathing, and somehow he wasn't just surviving it, he was thriving in it. Jack sighed dramatically. All right, fine, maybe I enjoy it a little bit. R's lips curved into something that was almost a smile. Almost. Jack tapped at the console. So tell me, what's next? Because I'd love for the answer to be a tropical planet with unlimited cocktails and zero bounty hunters. Ara leaned forward, tapping a sequence into the ship's interface. The hollow display flickered to life, showing a new set of coordinates. Jack squinted at them. Wait, that's nowhere, just empty space. Not empty, Ara corrected. Hidden. Jack felt his stomach twist. Oh, fantastic. Because that always ends well. Ara didn't reply immediately. Instead, she studied him for a long moment, as if weighing something in her mind. Then finally, she spoke. You deserve to know the truth, Jack. Jack blinked. Okay, that's ominous, but I'm listening. Ara exhaled, her golden eyes flickering with something he couldn't quite place. Solaric was not just a syndicate, they were connected to something larger, something older. The research we found, the experiments, the AI. They were searching for a way to harness an ancient power, a power linked to my people. Jack frowned. You mean? Yes, she confirmed. The ones who came before, the ones who left the ruins scattered across the galaxy, the ones who were feared and yet somehow forgotten. Jack rubbed his temples. Okay, so let me get this straight. Not only did we just piss off a crime syndicate, but now we've uncovered some kind of ancient alien conspiracy. Ara nodded. Precisely, Jack groaned. I really need that cocktail. But then his humor faded as something clicked into place. Wait, Ara, what does this mean for you? Ara hesitated. For the first time since he'd met her, she seemed uncertain. It means, she said slowly, that I am not just running from Solar, I am running from a past I barely understand myself. Jack stared at her. For all the times he had asked about her origins, about where she had come from, she had always been elusive, but now finally she was opening up, and Jack realized something. He wasn't just along for the ride anymore, he was in this. Jack exhaled and leaned back in his seat. Well, damn. Guess that means I'm in too, huh? Ala tilted her head. You could walk away, Jack. I would not hold it against you. Jack snorted. Oh, please, you'd be lost without me. Ara actually smirked. Debatable. Jack grinned. All right, fine, but in all seriousness, I think we both know I'm not going anywhere. Ara gave him a long look. Then finally she nodded. Jack cracked his knuckles. All right, then let's go solve an ancient mystery, avoid getting killed, and if we have time, maybe find a planet where I can finally get that cocktail. All turned back to the controls setting course now. As the Zephyr surged forward into the unknown, Jack let out a slow breath, staring out into the vastness of space. Once he had been nothing more than a small-time pilot drifting from job to job with no real purpose, but now he was part of something bigger, something that stretched beyond just himself, and maybe, just maybe, he was exactly where he was meant to. The end.